February 1st, 1937. Three Quincy physicians, Dr. Kent Barber, Dr. Walter Whitaker, and Dr. Ori Shulian, did something that few others had done in medicine, came together as one. The Quincy Clinic was born. Innovative from the start, the clinic was one of only 3 group practices in Illinois at the time.
Both Dr. Whitaker and Dr. Barber helped found Quincy Clinic. They were very, very visionaries, you could tell in talking to them, and they were very responsible in bringing in a vast array of subspecialty care to Quincy, Illinois, expanding Quincy Clinic.
1939, chaos across the world. World War II began. The United States entered the war 2 years later. In 1943, Dr. Whitaker and Dr. Barber answered the call of duty. Late 1945, welcome home. After a time of turmoil, soldiers and sailors returned. Life was different. The Quincy Clinic physicians were more determined than ever. But they weren't the only ones. Just a stone's throw away from the Quincy Clinic, another group clinic had formed. A group of local physicians purchased the Standard Oil Regional Office Building. Once used as a wartime map-making facility, the building was located on the corner of 11th and Main. Now open. On January 1st, 1946, Drs. Earl Caddick, Carson Gabriel, Ralph McReynolds, James Merritt, and James Rauner, innovative physicians in their own right, opened Physicians and Surgeons Clinic.
Though different clinics, in the 1950s, the leaders of both Quincy Clinic and Physicians and Surgeons Clinic had similar visions.
I think it would be very, very similar to a parent passing down values to their children, who pass it down to their children and their children. And so I know that the leaders of our organization, one of the things that was important to them was to continue to pass down the importance of an independent physician group.
Traditions were born. Quincy Clinic celebrated their successes and the holidays. Early in the decade, the clinic reorganized with a brief name change to The Clinic, only to return to its original name a few months later. To make room for expanding services, both clinics announced plans for growth. Quincy Clinic purchased property on Main Street for a planned addition. Meanwhile, Physicians and Surgeons Clinic acquired property at 1115 Main to convert into a parking lot. As we enter the 1960s, growth continued to be the focus for both clinics. Construction began at Quincy Clinic to more than double the existing floor space and give the exterior a new appearance. A couple years later, Physicians and Surgeons Clinic was issued a permit to remodel the third floor of 1101 Main with an expected cost of $12,000. By this decade, physicians at both clinics had become an integral part of patients' lives and Quincy.
So I knew Dr. Barber, and then I also knew Dr. Whitaker, and I always felt that Dr. Whitaker was a guy who absolutely knew everything. I think he forgot more about medicine than most of us will ever learn. But I was at football practice out at the high school one afternoon, and my helmet broke and it cut my cheek. So they brought me down to the clinic, and there was always a doctor at the clinic to see you. And Dr. Whitaker had me come in, and he looked at my cheek, and he wiped it off, cleaned it up a little bit, and then he put 2 stitches in it without anesthesia. And he said, it'd hurt more just to put the anesthesia in, so he said, I'm just going to put these in. So he put in 2 stitches. I really didn't feel much. They patted me on the back, put a Band-Aid on my cheek, and said, son, you're ready to go back to practice.
The end of the decade brought plans for more growth. Quincy Clinic announced another major expansion. An additional building with a South Main entrance was completed in 1969.